Hello, YouTube. How's it going? Ah, it sees us. Fantastic. Okay. I believe we're live. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Smudcast, number 609. Is whitewashing really still a thing? And this is, to put in context, this was done in 2016. So, yes, it's still a thing. So is blackwashing and a bunch of other washing skin tones in movies and TV shows. It's still going on. Whatever casting figures out, whatever director wants is what they get. Doesn't matter if it's a video game or a movie. It's happening. So, this is, of course, from Doug Walker, nostalgia critic from Channel Awesome. Came out 7 years ago. Has 1.4 million views. So, good for him. And I'm sure there's all kinds of fun comments in the comment section. But we're not here to read those. We're here to watch the video, which is about 15 and a half minutes long. Shouldn't take too long.
Wow, that's pretty long for a offshoot for episode of Nostalgia Critic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is not what he usually does, but I guess he has to put his hat into the ring when it comes to movies and
quite literally, yeah.
Yeah. So, I always bring up the Ghost in the Shell film with Scarlett Johansson and why that worked. And how it wouldn't have.
She looks like the character.
She looks like the character exactly. Two, she's a brand, so she's a big name. And if it wasn't her, who else would they have gotten? I don't know. Three,
someone who looks like the character.
That would be that'd be the obvious choice, right? But it wouldn't have sold to the producer. The producer says, "Well, who are we going to get to attract the big bucks?" And they needed a name like Johansson to make that happen. And three, the Japanese, being the Japanese, didn't give a crap. They said,
"Yeah." I saw like several interviews where like they just asked like Japanese people, like anime fans, like did you care that like they chose Scarlett Johansson? And like they were like, no, it's pretty cool. Yeah, like they're sharing our culture through this.
They love when the characters actually look like the characters.
Oh yeah, and that's like
just like we do.
That's the obvious response. But there's other reasons that work. Not only does she look like the character of the Major is, I think she has memory loss. She doesn't recall her history too well. We do see her childhood in some of the show of Standalone Complex, the second gig, I believe. But she's always been, as we know her, whether a girl or a woman, in a robot body. She has no actual appearance. She has no actual, like in a world of cyberpunk, which is so advanced where everyone has cyber brains, you can get away with stuff like that. The same way you can get away with some stuff in other cyberpunk or other fantasy where you have shapeshifters and stuff like that, where it makes sense. So, Shadowrunner? What's that? What's other cyberpunk? Shadowrun, there you go. Where they have magic and tech and all kinds of cyberpunk stuff, dragons, magic, all kinds of things running around. It's like, okay, shapeshifters would make sense. Fair enough.
Cool trash can looking drones that fly around and shoot things
and hack things. Yeah, it's awesome. So if you're playing around,
with jacking in cables. In original Shadowrun, there was no Wi-Fi yet. In the later Shadowrun edition, they added Wi-Fi because they wanted to go with the times, and it just completely broke the game.
Because you could hack anything.
Because imagine you're a technomancer, and so you're a hacker, and before you had to find the right USB thing or other jack in to put your cable in order to actually be able to hack something. Now you got Wi-Fi. You can just control everything with your mind, and in return be controlled.
That's awesome.
It's just silly because everyone else is just doing actual physical stuff while the hackers just goes around and matrixes everything in God mode.
Yeah, unless you're a samurai, and actually no, because as soon as you hack, technically the game should be over because everything happens so quickly, and you control everything. But the samurai guy would come around and hopefully stop that before it happens.
That's where it's important. Where it's important that you don't have anything hackable in your body.
Yes,
it's a good warning for the future too. But you still need to outspeed any sentry guns or whatever controlled by the hacker. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
it's horrible. It's just horrible. They just shouldn't have done that.
If they had more, they actually put that into Deus Ex Human Revolution, the inspiration from RoboCop.
Oh yes, they did.
you pick up the turret and just mows people down. Love that. Anyway.
All right, you people mostly know Shadowrun through the PC game.
Well, I remember it from the Super Nintendo game.
It was a Super Nintendo game?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
And the Genesis too, I think it was on.
Wow.
Well, that tells you how old I am, but yes.
I've never got a game.
I do remember both the original and was it Hong Kong Shadowrunner? So those are great games. They're still fun to play. And if you can get a copy, I don't know if they're still selling them on Steam. They should. They're not expensive. But good turn-based stuff. Lots of options. Feels like Deus Ex without all the action in the first person, but that's okay.
Mm.
Yes, Joe Crazy, I agree with your chat. Sadly, it doesn't display because it's still broken.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to probably reinstall the entire application, rebuild my entire platform on Streamlabs. Yeah.
Do it later.
I know. This week has been nuts. Last week has been nuts. There's no time. And even this week, we wanted to do a stream. We had no time to do it. Everyone was busy. So I want to get the right people, obviously, for the stream, because we can't just have random people on. Anyway. Okay, 15 and a half minutes. Here we go. Doug Walker. Oh, boy.
Hello, I'm the Nostalgia Critic guy, remembered, so you don't have to. Let's talk about whitewashing. Stop! Obviously, this...
We already did that.
Okay.
I just find that funny.
Okay.
Everybody has a strong opinion on, especially given the news recently. Two big movies have just done previews, a trailer from Marvel's Doctor Strange and a still from Paramount's remake of Ghost in the Shell. The internet flipped, as both films were accused of whitewashing, which, for those who don't know, is when a person who's supposed to be of a certain ethnicity is suddenly played by a white person. In Ghost in the Shell's case, people were upset because Scarlett Johansson was playing what was originally an Asian character.
Only by mind. Look at her. She has big eyes.
I think it's pretty spot on casting-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
I was
boobs too.
Yeah, see, that's where I...
Which she later got a reduction for.
I was like, hey, wait a second. If you're going to do it right, we're going to get naked, and there's no nudity. So I was like, all right, that's not... Like point off, like 10% of my appreciation just went down. So I understand why, but I'm still disappointed because it's an easy thing to do if you want to get it right. If you want to be visceral, and the whole movie is gorgeous. The whole movie is a visual feast. And
I thought it was for adults.
I did too, but apparently they knocked it down without nudity. Plenty of violence though, all kinds of violence, but no boobs. So, oh well.
Yeah, so here we have this. This is just casting someone who actually looks like the character. In regards to Tilda Swinton playing, what was it, the Wise One? The chief magician, whatever. It's so long ago, I forgot the bloody title. That's not just an Asian character, that's a male character. So the thing isn't about whitewashing. The thing with Tilda Swinton playing that character is a complete rewrite of the character into another sex on top of everything. I think she does come across like some starved old Asian woman in a temple. Don't get me wrong. She does give me that vibe, but
yeah,
that's not the character.
And it's more extreme when we talk about the changes that when you have the creator, let's say Neil Gaiman, doing his final Sandman. I think he's getting a second season. And you see the changes they make to the characters, like Lucian.
Yes, it's gonna get a second season.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, why did you change the sex? Was there a reason? Oh, why did you change the actual sexuality? Is there a reason? Why did you change the background of the Hellraisers comic to have you had the same actress play the same character from 200 years ago, and now she's the same character in the present. You're like, why did you do that? And it's just because Neil Gaiman, as progressive as he is, has more creative control, so he's going to do these things. They let him.
Yeah, but he also shields them. and says, "It's good, it's good, it's good, it's great."
He is a changed man now.
Well,
He's going senile.
Oh, he went through the struggle sessions.
Really
Few people survived the struggle sessions intact.
okay.
Oh yeah, Trench in the chat says Doctor Strange changed the character because of China.
Really?
I guess the original Ancient One was offensive to China.
Oh, come on. Oh well. Well, I don't know if that was a big deal for that kind of movie. That film was also a visual feast, but it was also a bit of a visual tornado. Hard to look at times. Plot was a little weak here and there.
I liked it more than anything after that with Doctor Strange.
Oh, I didn't even bother watching anything after that.
Oh God!
And the only reason I saw it...
Don't start now.
Everything's
yeah, the only reason I saw it was because it was on TV. I didn't actually pay money to see it. So. Yeah, I was like, oh, what's that? Oh, it's like watching Inception or something. Yeah, sure, why not? Oh my God.
That's better than mine, because the only way I saw Doctor Strange is through the memes. That's my only platform.
It's like they're doing it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Strange said, because I haven't read the comics.
Yeah, Marvel's.
Strange says the original Ancient One was Tibetan.
Oh.
Yes, they have changed it because the Chinese. But like you can't show Doctor Strange in China because it uses magic, and magic. The showcase of magic and like all those kinds of like mythical stuff is like foreign for China. So,
but aren't Chinese fantasy movies also using magic?
Oh God.
Well, it depends on what kind of magic, you know. Like if it has ghosts and resurrecting dead people, no.
Then Doctor Strange 2 is completely off the table for China.
Yes, exactly. They could show that movie.
If it's about using wire fu and being a martial art god and breaking things with your head, then it's fine. It's totally fine. You could do it.
And having Sun Wukong, like not Son Goku from Dragon Ball, the actual Monkey King, use his magic to do stuff, that's okay because he's a cultural icon.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, it's not as bad as like the censorship for blood that they do. It's like just
God.
Paint everything white.
No skeletons allowed. They all have to have no bones showing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to finalize what we're saying here is that Scarlett Johansson looked very good as the Major in Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah. Yeah, that was no race swapping at all. That's finding someone on the planet who looks like the character, can act, and already has a name as well that people recognize.
Right.
That's like 3-in-1.
And
awesome.
They did a pretty good job with Bato and some of the other characters did an okay job as well, I thought. So.
Oh yeah, Bato looked great. I just thought this story with his the story with his eyes that they botched?
They changed it, but it wasn't. He wasn't a major factor in the movie, and they obviously changed the backstory of the Major as well, which was different. I was like, that's not bad. It wasn't great, but
Kusanagi has a different backstory in every iteration of Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, that's true.
Like there are the only things that are consistent in every iteration of Ghost in the Shell, every series, the manga, every movie. The only things that are consistent is she rips her own arm off, trying to open something.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And epically jacks a cable into a tank or something.
Yeah, like in the manga, she was like a mercenary lesbian for hire or something. You're like, what?
and the jumping backwards off a roof like we see here is a thing that also has to happen in every iteration of Ghost in the Shell. Other than that, everything is random.
Yeah. I will say I did want to see the multiple backflipping in the pool, fighting the guy and then doing the crazy roundhouse kick, because if you see that scene, she's holding onto the guy from behind while doing multiple backflips. So she's breaking this guy's back and legs like she's a freaking death mannequin or something. Yeah. And it's happened so awesomely quick. You're like, holy shit, that animation is smooth. And then
that animation, that scene, that background, everything there, the water, how it's drawn, the lighting, the reflections, it's just amazing. And part of that amazingness comes from it just being drawn.
Yeah, and she's partially invisible, and you see the silhouette, and it's like, wow, this is really cool. And
you see the footsteps in the water.
Yeah, then you see the roundhouse, the 180s, like kaboom, and you're like, whoa, and the guy just like flies around. And there's so much happening in that shot, that little in the car chase scene, and they got some of those shots in the movie, which if you know the original film, you're like, oh my god, they actually did that for nostalgia.
The movie, the live action movie is really just all the cool iconic scenes from every iteration of Ghost in the Shell put on a string and try to weave a red thread through, which I personally think doesn't really work.
You're right.
I hated the writing of this movie.
It is so much nostalgia bait, it just becomes the film. And if that's all it is, then you're going to love it. But if you actually pay attention to the story, it's like, okay, it's loosely connected. It's not broken. It makes sense, but it's not anything worthwhile.
I mean, you can cut it together well for music videos, then it's great. It's great scenes by themselves, but altogether it doesn't make a movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, anyway, let's get back.
And in Doctor Strange's case, a Tibetan man is now being portrayed as a Celtic woman, played by Tilda Swinton. This is a touchy subject that's making a lot of people feel enraged.
Celtic? What do you mean with Celtic?
Irish.
There are no... The Celtic culture is dead. It's gone.
There's a language, but that's about it.
But there are no Celtic cultural practices really anymore, except for drinking beer.
Well, sure. I guess you can call that a Celtic thing. You can also call it an Egyptian thing.
I mean, by the same logic, we're still heathens in North Germany because we put on big fires for Easter, which have simply been declared, that's a Christian thing now. So okay, it's now Christians. Okay,
and we dunk.
But it's like there's no Celtics. It's a lie.
Whitewashing is. Let's face it, white people have mastered bullshitting for years.
Why do you hate yourself?
Okay.
Yep.
We hated this movie.
Image is terrible.
Dude, everybody hated this movie. What is your bloody problem?
Oh wait, that's his point. That like, okay, but like everyone bashed this movie for terrible casting.
Yeah. It's nothing to do with race swaps or anything. And in the case of Avatar, I do agree. If you want to have lookalikes for these characters, cast people from the races that are thrown into the Avatar world.
I think it's rather simple for Americans to like do something for Avatar, not so much for the Japanese.
Well, I think it's gonna get difficult to find a lot of Eskimo actors. It's a very small population.
I think you can do it.
It's possible, but
there's only like a few characters for that, so
I
think the majority are like Earth Kingdom and Fire Nation.
Well, imagine everything else in the movie, the special effects, the story, the pacing, everything was fine. And then you can say, okay, yeah, these characters don't look or sound exactly the way they should.
Yeah.
But because everything else was horrible, you're like, oh my god.
I mean, hey, at least it's not Black Achilles.
Okay, yeah, that's true. They completely screw over.
It's not a black Jarl in Denmark. Black female Jarl. Coming from an Egyptian royal line.
They could be olive skinned or something like that.
Egyptian royal, yeah.
All right. Anyway, yeah, this was a bad film, and this is like one of 20 things that were wrong with the story or the movie.
Yeah, I mean, everybody hates this for good reason, and the casting is just one of the things. Like, we want lookalikes. It's fine. Yeah. That's all we want.
Let's carry on.
Yeah.
Which is all the more reason to get upset. People can't believe that it's still going on. Is America, home to so many different cultures and races, still
Even is
resorting
that.
to the same offensive tricks? Have things really gotten better, or have we just disguised our hypocrisy even more? Well, for Ghost in the Shell, originally a Japanese property, there is one group of people that, for the most part, doesn't seem to have that big a problem. The Japanese!
Yep.
Granted, we obviously can't speak for all of them, but when asking random Japanese people on the street what they thought of the casting of the film, most of them seemed pretty okay. Not only did they say she looked like the character, but they also knew it was an American film, and American films have mostly white actors. I guess in
There's a problem of Japanese filmmaking because they have to get foreign actors for foreign roles. Because they're all Japanese. India has a similar problem when in Bollywood. Most of the roles are played by Indians from India, not the North Americans. Yeah. The problem in Hollywood is that they don't hire based on merit, on quality of acting, or on lookalike, and then choosing from the combination pool of that. They just go for, how do we fulfill the race quota?
Yeah,
how do we fulfill the gay quota?
And I think
let's be subversive and make Heimdall a black man because he's the whitest god. Haha. What a surprise. You didn't expect that, did you? Haha.
Well,
also, it's Idris Elba, who's a famous actor who can act well, and you know him, so you can't complain. Haha.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because in anime you have like great shows like Steins Gate where they know they don't have an American actor as the lead, but he's going to try and act like he's American, but that's the joke because he thinks he's talking to an American. He thinks he's talking in an American way, and you have that hilarious son of a bitch scene. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. It's absolutely funny and ridiculous, and he's trying to talk to some guy in the street like he thinks he's American, so he speaks in English, but with a very, very, very Japanese accent. So
pera.
It's good. Like the actors know that. And there's also obviously the producers of these animes who say, okay, well, we need to emulate an American, and it never quite. They just can't for some reason they just can't hire an American for whatever reason. It's hard to find them in Japan, so they have a Japanese guy do some voice coaching and try to say American things. It comes close. I've only heard it once or twice where it actually sounds okay. And it's not just anime. I've seen it in Hong Kong films where they have martial arts who are American, and they do actually, of course, have a British accent or what have you. So it does actually work in some cases, but it's very rare to get that American talent to actually be American in the story they're trying to share. Yeah. It's always the student coming in, the foreign exchange student, and they're from America and they're blonde, but they have perfect Japanese cadence. And you're like, wow, that's amazing.
One thing that's also common in Asian movies is that the villain is often some European. And I'm fine with that because that's the rich foreigner trying to exploit us, using us. Bollywood does a similar thing. I think in Slumdog Millionaire that was the case. Oh, yeah. One of the more known Bollywood movies in the West.
That's another Shyamalan movie.
Yeah, but I found it okay.
Yeah, it was okay.
That was when he the thing he did worked.
Yeah, the twist is right as he's explaining everything happening. It's like, how did you do that? It's like, well, this is my story, and then boom, a whole story explaining this impossible answer to a question that he just happened to know. You're like, wow, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. So that was like taking this stupid twist from the Shyamalan brain and just like stretching it out. So it's less crazy.
The whole thing was that by coincidence, every question that came up was part of this, had the answer in some part of his life. But for the same reason, I'm fine with European and American movies having foreigners as the villains. Because I find it silly that for everyone on the planet, Europeans have to be the villains in all movies. Because that would just be like the Nazis making movies where all the villains are always the Jews. That's stupid. If you just have one race or one people, one culture, that's always the bad guys. It can be anyone. Depends on who is at the current time in your area known as the rich people that cause strife. And that's usually people coming in from the outside.
Okay, let's get going.
Japan did their version of, say, Superman, and they cast a Japanese actor in the role. Americans probably wouldn't care. I think most people are assuming, too, that because the film is made by Americans, it probably wouldn't take place in Japan. The same way The Ring or The Grudge were Asian properties, but clearly weren't filmed in Asia and didn't star Asian people. Or the same way they remade Seven Samurai in the Old West, the first time. In fact, there's tons of remakes of foreign films that have done this, as well as replaced the actors with white Americans, but have...
But there's also like that awkward version of Spider-Man, like the Japanese Spider-Man. the only thing that they have done is that they used Spider-Man, like the original design, and like just made a story around it that was more like a Japanese soap opera.
It is so crazy. The Japanese
it is
version,
insane.
like every 2 seconds, some crazy like there's what's the Gingaman stuff that he loves, the Seiyu action sort of stuff.
Aikisho, I don't know.
Sentai?
Sentai, thank you. It's basically Sentai with Spider-Man, with ancient Edo warriors, with guys that are psychic powered, with space robots. Like all this shit just happens within like 20 seconds.
You've sold me on the movie.
You're like, what is going on?
I want to see that.
It's so cool. Like you're just like, whoa! And then this happened. Like, wow, everything is happening, and this is like one episode. You're like, I can't stand it. But then
this is the 70s Japanese Spider-Man. Yeah. Just look up like YouTube and like you will find.
But there's like Polish Spider-Man. You've got Italian Spider-Man. It's nuts. It's crazy stuff. So everyone uses superheroes for their own purpose.
Why is there no German Spider-Man?
Maybe.
Spinnenmann.
Maybe I wouldn't be surprised. There's definitely Indian Spider-Man for sure. I mean, just thinking about it, it's like, yeah, that happened.
Does it mean Spider-Man is an
Adobe tutorials?
240p.
Does that mean Spider-Man is a global spanning cultural god icon, basically?
I think he's so popular that to put someone in a mask that's well known, Spider-Man would be the go-to.
Is he bigger than Jesus?
No. Not even the Beatles is bigger than Jesus.
Well, the Beatles was just the Beatles, but Spider-Man...
I'm thinking Batman might be a close second. If you can look at YouTube and see all the crazy costume stuff in the 70s and 80s, probably Superman, definitely Spider-Man, some Batman for sure.
Well, speaking of Batman, like the Japanese have done their rendition of Batman Ninja. That was fucking crazy.
Oh, that is nuts. Yeah, that anime is nuts.
The people behind the JoJo 3D openings, they decide to like make an entire movie around that. Wow.
Tyler Preston informs us that there's a Spider-Man manga that's more comic book accurate, but it's completely depressing.
Oh, really?
That sounds properly Japanese.
Wouldn't be surprised, yeah.
Yeah, but with all these remakes that came out, especially since the writers' strike in Hollywood, it's when they started doing this on steroids. I was never that happy with that because like Hollywood, you just want these movies to be seen as your things because your own population doesn't know these foreign movies. So you can sell them their ideas as your own, and that doesn't sit right with me, especially when the adaptations are shit.
I gotcha. All right.
It's basically just the form of fraud in a way. Fraud isn't the right word, but there's a big level of disingenuousness there that they just want to make money on other people's ideas.
Okay, let's keep going.
Never sized, even to this day. So why is this one getting so beaten up? Well, there could be a couple reasons. One could be the character struck such a chord with anime.
The politics that came out, that got big in these years, they went around in that way with that amount of activists when those other movies like Oldboy came out. Wasn't a thing then. And these people don't know anything that happened before they looked at it. And if Oldboy came out now, they would might complain about it. But since it came out before they became, they started looking at things. Things in the past don't exist until you tell them.
Yeah, I think
that's why they could make up their arguments of there's never been a female action hero in video games, and then we bring them all the characters, and then they just try to act as if we didn't say anything and keep repeating the same line again,
I think
like robots.
If the remake was not called Oldboy, it would have been fine. We'd be like, okay, just a weird action martial arts film. But because it came from something, and you're like, okay, the first one was the best, and you're like, okay, why would you remake this? There's no reason. Just do your own thing. That's why I think fans and people went, it's not that good. And then they started harping on it for what was actually bad about it, and they started picking apart, well, this guy's not Asian, or this guy. I was like, okay, whatever.
That's I'd say back then all this changing characters, races, or anything had more to do with making money on the local market through more or less stealing a script that of a good, well-written movie, and just using your local actors that had established names rather than race swapping. Right now, they rather do the things for race swapping because they have all this material that they're adapting. Like we had the year of bad fantasy adaptations. And yeah, that's done for political reasons.
All right.
Not for money-making reasons, because these things don't make money.
All right, here's I missed a super chat from Caporal. Thank you, sir. Ghost in the Shell movie was like an OVA that sums the series.
Which one?
I think the original?
No, I'd say all of them.
Oh, geez.
Which makes it a new one. Ghost in the Shell is basically the new standard problem.
Well,
we have 26 standards for protocols in some IT thing, or connectors for things. Let's invent a new universal connector so that nobody needs to use any of the other 26 anymore. Well, and then what we have is now we have 27 connectors that confuse people.
It's a bit hard when you talk about like Innocence or the other one. What the hell is it called? Solid State Society, I think. They're totally different, and you have to like, where was the producer's mind to say we want to put money into the artsy fartsy project using this IP that everyone loves, and you're like, whoa, wait, don't do that. So yes, you can get artsy fartsy in cyberpunk manga or the genre as a whole, but you probably shouldn't change tones when you're doing something that everyone loves. It's going to throw people off. I knew I was thrown off. I was like, wow, I was not expecting an art project. Kaleidoscope every 2 minutes. So it's tough to swallow when you already have a highbrow style of narrative that takes itself seriously.
Let's destroy every strong emotional moment and scene with a quippy subversive line.
At times, yeah, it was a bit
so
thick.
Often.
Yeah. All right, here's the Brazilian ire. Hey, sir. A reminder that the Writers Guild itself is a communist front group. Sure. Notice how all the more obvious SJW media took place after the strike was resolved. I think purge is a more apt term to describe what happened. My evidence is that it gave us SU. SU. What are we talking about?
Steven Universe.
Oh. Well, I don't know. We're talking about a writer's strike from what, the early 2000s or?
Yeah. I think early mid 2000s.
Okay.
I never got the message that it was resolved because the writing in Hollywood is still shit.
Well, we can argue television got better because of competition with Netflix and other streaming services. So.
Right.
It was like a small window. Then yes, it did improve, but I would say like the movie Platform, it definitely they didn't get those rights back.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely remember those amazing television things like the last season of Game of Thrones or Star Trek Discovery. Wonderful writing, amazing. We definitely need more of that.
There's still Star Trek Discovery going on.
They put so much work into that has to be applauded. And needs to be made more of that. Although I haven't seen any of it.
I saw the Red Letter Media review, and
that's about it. My dad watched it, and I listened to my dad, so he had a good sit me down one day, and we talked about how good Discovery was for him. Like, oh, thanks, Dad.
Oh God.
I mean, that's the same with me. My dad, like, he tells me that, like, wow, Rings of Power was really good, and I was like, really? Okay, that's really nice for you. By the way, I'm reading the book. Oh, okay.
You're reading the book that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay.
They're gonna follow the book in the next season. I'm like, wow. So, like, the first season didn't follow it at all.
The glossary.
So what was the story then? What was the plot?
The glossary was 2 pages long. Oh wow! Look at all this content we have to work with. We can make a whole series out of this.
Why do boats float? Because it's floaty.
Oh.
All
right.
It's like dialogue out of Kung Pao.
Just imagine every minute of that show was $1 million.
Oh God.
How many miles?
Where did that money go?
6 million?
That's 60 minutes of a show. It's $60 million. Oh my God. Anyway, we're gonna get back.
We've had better adaptations of the Nibelungen saga than this crap.
Okay.
Which is something that Tolkien also wrote about.
Magic rings, yeah, for sure. All right, let's keep going.
He was so tied to our Japanese heritage, or most likely to, America has so many Asian American actors, some of which are even featured in the film.
Yeah, but they need giant eyes. They need giant anime eyes.
Ironically, one of the Japanese on the streets said, like, if they got, like, someone who's not Japanese, they might get the anime style better.
Oh, really? Because
yes,
no one wanted the Battle Angel Alita eyes for anyone in this film.
Oh no!
No one would ever want that. So
I think, like, Battle Angel Alita was like 2 or 3 years after this movie, but yeah.
I remember seeing
the design was just uncanny.
The trailer was that the same thing that happened to Sonic, where the trailer the eyes were so big, but they changed it for the film because they realized that it was too much.
I don't know.
I think I heard something like that because obviously with Sonic we knew what happened there, but when I saw that trailer, I was like, "That's too much." They went too big.
Oh, that scared me away. Even though, like, it's not a bad movie, like, compared to, like, what else like Hollywood has been adapting.
Yeah. But they still changed not just her eyes; they changed her entire body, the entire look.
Yeah, she's a little svelte girl in.
They made her like the actual Alita body in the manga has the body of a grown-up girl.
Oh, really?
And she has probably C or D cups on this little body, and like,
Whisp with measuring tape.
It's a proportion thing. Yeah, on this small little body, and in the movie, in the was it James Cameron?
Yes.
In the Cameron,
so, yeah.
in the Cameron movie, they essentially make her into a Lolita.
Yeah.
And I found that that's not Alita.
Well, the manga is a bit weird. Like when you get the first few episodes of the manga, it's like, this is really cool. You see the anime, it's really cool. You get to the later parts of the manga, it's like Dragon Ball Z, but with like crazy, everything's a fight, everything's an arena fight, and it's like, oh, okay, we're in this whole other realm now, where the original message of the film was, you know, you're striving in the dirt and the muck to better yourself and be ethically better and survive and all these good lessons. Then you get to the later parts of the book, and it's just all fighting and power levels and techniques, and it's like, all right, that's fine, but it's not what you signed up for. And I bet that I didn't see the movie, but I saw the anime. Brilliant for what it was worth. Lovely message, lovely story, a little bit of romance, a little bit of tragedy, and it was perfect for what it was worth, I thought. The original. didn't see the live action, but if they tone down the eyes, maybe I'll watch it. It's a bit creepy. The original trailer was at least.
Yeah, and that's the thing often with 2D drawings. They have different effects on us. They look different. Different things look well on paper, drawn on paper, than they look as a 3D model, or especially as live action, because these things don't look good in 3D.
Right.
They look good in 2D because they're stylized.
I remember the trailer from the original anime. The Doctor had this rocket staff, and I thought that was the coolest thing. And if they have that in the live action, I might watch it. So
the rocket hammer?
It's like a spike.
It's a rocket hammer. It's a rocket propelled sledgehammer.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, that's so cool. So maybe I'll watch it. Who knows? Anyway.
That it seems pointlessly silly not to cast one in the leading role. They are still, after all,
she looks so
Americans.
weird in her eyes.
I also keep hearing that there's no Asian American actors big enough to guarantee a good box office. Well, first of all, there's tons of Asian American actors, and many of them are very successful.
Look at their tiny eyes!
Oh no.
Oh no, it's it's John Cho.
Look how flat the
Cho.
women are.
Oh, poor John Cho, Mr. 48. Oh, he's like 50 now, right?
51.
51. Oh my god. Can you imagine if it was still like second season of Cowboy Bebop?
Yeah.
John, you're too. Come on, dude.
I'd rather not. Like every single day of my life for like 6 months now, it's about like dissecting that Netflix show.
I wake up, I still have to watch this show.
I have to watch the show.
You're going
to write down another sentence of why I hate this.
You're going episode by episode, aren't you?
No, the next video is gonna be 2 episodes in one. Because they are so short, I barely could make like 5 pages of an episode because nothing is happening.
Content for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Which would be cool. Which would be cool in certain animes where 10 seconds go by and nothing happens. It's mood, atmosphere, philosophical moments, but no, not in Netflix. No, sadly.
Netflix is just like, how can we insert a sex joke here?
Sorry.
Well,
yeah,
fair,
for one. And the images of the Asians from America that he's showing us here, that's just random actors. He didn't even bother to think of, here's a good example of a lookalike for Kusanagi.
Or like net worth at all. Like how famous they are. Because like Scarlett Johansson at the time, like 2016, like that was like, she was crazy popular. Like everyone knew like Marvel, and like people weren't disappointed. Like this was before Endgame, but it was like getting to shaky ground. Like even before that, like people were like disinterested, but like not that much. Like people were still like buying into these movies. Like it got billions. Like so, like getting like a big name like that is like something else. He just doesn't get the point. Also, he's showing all these male actors, like male Asian actors, like for Kusanagi. I'm like, come on.
Does he want to sex swap Kusanagi?
No, I think it's just like a general idea that like they aren't like big name Asian actors in America. But like, it's like no, it's not that. It's like you have to find the best lookalike, and if they can speak the language. And for that reason, like because it's an American movie, it doesn't matter if the person can speak Japanese or not.
Yeah, and God, what was his name again? Because Takeshi Kitano. He played the old man, and God, I forgot all the names. Holy shit, what happened? And I think he would have done it better. Like he didn't play him character accurate at all. He played himself, and there was a mistake on his part. He was the one that was immersion breaking in the movie, because he had this big suit all the time, when the character he was supposed to play always had these very tight, small suits on, and he was just intimidating through just his presence, because he was the actual characters emanating this. I know I am in control, and you will do as I tell you, or everyone's gonna die. And I don't need to say any of this. You just know it by looking at me. But this tiny old monkey-looking man.
Yeah, I think it's anything. It's not just visuals. It's anything that's jarring that goes, that doesn't fit. That doesn't sound right. Like remember, this is like a little obscure, but Mad Max Fury Road, where the 80-yard, was it his name? Tom Hardy, sorry. The 80-yard, his voice lines in it was so jarring. Like I could tell, like, that doesn't sound in the right sound of the room they're in. We just heard that lady speak and that person speak, and all of a sudden you hear this guy really close to a mic in a very clear voice. Yeah, and you're like, whoa, that was not in the same realm. So it doesn't matter, even if it looks right or something's off, it doesn't sound like, it's going to be jarring to the audience. So in concept, in far away, close up, it doesn't really matter what it is. Anything that takes you out of this world they try to put you in, as much as you enjoyed Mad Max, I think a lot of people enjoyed the film, you can tell there was something about that ADR stuff that just like, whoa, that did not feel accurate. The sound level was too high or something. There was something too intense with the way he recorded his voice. They wanted him to be clear. Like, imagine the 80-yard Batman in the Nolan films. Because one thing, you could barely tell what he was saying in the first place. But if they actually like gave him a strong, clear voice, first you could hear him, you're like, thank you, Batman. But why is Batman have such a strong, booming voice when he should be mysterious and quiet? So there's a fine line between I can't hear what the hell he's saying or what he looks like, and okay, that's too much. You're overcompensating. So there's a fine balance between sound and visuals and makeup and costume, and it worked okay, if not very well, with the live action Ghost in the Shell, I think.
Yeah, and even though you have a Japanese actor for Aramaki was the name, by having him act differently, behave differently, like not sit straight like a perfect student when he sits in a chair, and being so tiny looks up at you with the eyes of someone who's staring you down, even though he's looking up at you. Instead, Kitano playing Aramaki, he just flounged in a chair, like it was all like it's a different kind of display of power. It's how you would imagine it from some loose drunk Yakuza boss or something, but not from Aramaki.
Yeah, it was a bit off.
And that's and that's how you can throw people off. And being a lookalike is just the first step. Then you check, can this person actually act? If the person can't act, it depends on how important is the role. If the role is the main role, well, maybe we can work around that. With Schwarzenegger in Conan the Barbarian, it wasn't that important that he couldn't act that much, because Conan the Barbarian doesn't talk that much. He's just moving around slaying things, maybe. It's okay.
All right.
Nice silent movie.
Here is Samurai women's shampoo. I don't know what Samurail, maybe? Women's shampoo? Anyway. I'm glad Netflix went to the trouble of casting a 50-year-old Korean man to play a 27-year-old Jewish man. Spike made young, intentionally young, because Watanabe wanted him to be a part of the 27 Club, being the huge music fan he was. Huh. Well, I think if he didn't have the right music for anything of his work, let alone Bebop, it wouldn't have worked. And I don't know, because I didn't watch the show, I don't know if the music, I heard they did all brand new music, but it was the same music from the original anime, which doesn't make too much sense to me, but whatever. I'm glad they got the original people. And even John Cho was like, if you don't get Yoko Kanno, I'm not doing it. So I was like, all right, fair enough. Guy knows his shit.
I can't believe that he wanted to pull off something real.
Yeah. I know. It's
probably realized, oh god, this is all garbage.
It's tough because I know he even moved. He moved his family out to was it Australia where they did.
Oh god.
They bought a house and then you had to and they got the call that they're not doing a second season, so they had to sell.
No, it was New Zealand.
New Zealand, yeah, okay.
Oh no!
Even the studio was in New Zealand.
Oh god! Oh, that is so sad.
You could tell he cared, but
the best part is that they started shooting the show, and then it was like early 2020, and then COVID hit, and because New Zealand and COVID, it meant that they couldn't shoot movies for like almost 2 years.
Yeah,
so
New Zealand is insane.
They start filming again in 2021 and finished it in summer, I think.
Jeez.
So that's insane,
yeah. But to the topic of the video, in NetBob, not a single character has the right ethnic background.
Believe it or not, Jet, who's played by a black dude, does the best job.
Yes,
I think the actor is good. I think the actor is good, but Jet is not black.
I know. It's like you're perfect except the skin tone. Like, oh, okay, well.
Is this blackmail? Oh, Jet, you are black and male.
Whoa.
That's a real line.
Oh, I'm dying.
By a character called Woodcock.
Oh boy. What a come on. Anyway. Let's keep going.
But I know what they mean when they say none of them are as big as Scarlett Johansson. Sure,
their eyes are not as big.
But guess what? Some of the highest grossing movies and franchises don't have huge names as the main character.
That movie didn't work well. Not in hindsight.
Not at all.
People only went to it because they thought, they're gonna make real Star Wars again. Ooh! Yep. And then later on realized, wait a minute, that was crap.
I remember like a family friend of ours, like they were like in their 50s and they were like, oh, you're gonna experience like Star Wars like we did in the 70s. And I'm like, am I really?
I'm not. I don't think
no,
so.
this isn't gonna be the one.
Yeah, and
also from what I heard, the actress who plays Rey, like she's like super rich, like her parents are. So like there are rumors that like she bought herself into the role. Because like she was apparently like one of the first choices like during casting, and they would just say like, yeah, we're gonna go with you.
That happened exactly with Solo, the first guy to show up, and then
that was him.
The number one guy. They said okay, and then they did like 500 more castings. It was like, okay, then like what is happening here? Like, how did this even happen?
Why did I waste so much time?
I'm sure there must have been a few hundred guys way better than him to play Han Solo.
Wait, but like I remember like the Solo movie that like it originally began as a parody. like 90% of the movie that like had to be recast. Used to be like more like a comedic tone to it. So like it wasn't to be taken seriously.
Right, yeah.
And because like they employed like two of those guys who made the Lego movie and Into the Spider-Verse.
Whoa.
And they got like a way different tone for the movie than what Kathleen Kennedy liked. So they got fired over that.
Was that Kasdan who got fired? I can't remember who got.
No. Kasdan was the one who got like so infuriated because like he didn't like the tone of the script. And like how the direction was going, because he was only there to like help out, and then eventually I think like him and his son decided to like write for the movie after the new director took over. But it was like a bombastic failure. Like that movie is extremely forgettable. I can barely remember anything about it.
I remember some things, but the actual interaction with characters are so like. All that goes through my mind. Hey, that's the chick from Game of Thrones, and that's Chewbacca.
Yes, exactly.
Some guy had a knife.
A shaved Wookiee. Oh, what's the Castle Run? That's it.
There was the chick.
And how did he get his name? He
was
alone.
Yeah. And the stupid scene in the jail when he's talking Wookiee. That was so like what?
Yeah. Oh god.
The reveal that the girl is or the girl with or the person with the helmet is a girl and she helps out. And you're like, why are you helping?
And the feminist robot.
Oh, that was just dumb. That was just some comedy routine they were trying to pull with whenever C-3PO or does anything and oh no. Only this is the female version of that. Like, oh.
I mean, like the C-3PO ones, but at least like they had like a reason to happen. Like they were like relevant to the plot as well. But like this one is just like, who the fuck is?
And then the end result is becomes uploaded into the nav as a nav application for the Falcon. You're like, that's kind of like the ending to episode 3. It's just like, oh, it's Darth Vader now. You're like, what? Really? That's all it took? Okay. Oh, that's great. What great character development there, George. Just chop off someone's hand. Now you're evil. Okay, that's good. Anyway, 3 minutes in, we're not getting very far, but I think Wisp is taking a break, so obviously we'll double our speed.
Daniel Radcliffe before Harry Potter. Who heard of Christopher Reeve before Superman?
I did.
Most of the names in Avatar aren't that huge. Harrison who? Star what? Bomb. But what about Doctor Strange's case? Is there really a bias against...
Doug is bringing up movies with people in it, but okay. But like this is an adaptation. Like it's printed on paper, like how the character needs to look like. Or in the animation, whatever. Like you have like a blueprint for yourself. Like Harrison Ford in Star Wars, yeah, cool. Like even like Mark Hamill was like a no-name actor before that, but this is beside the point. Like what happens is that like you have like an adaptation that you have to do. You exactly see like how this character is supposed to look like, and like you get like some information that like what is the closest thing that we can have like humanly possible to like do this, and you're not gonna do that,
right?
Because like we should ask like an actual character who is crippled and that does things. Like no, you just need an actor who can act, and that's it. That's all you have to do. And looks like the character.
Especially when you're talking about Ghost in the Shell, which has multiple animes, movies, manga.
It's endless.
Yeah. So if you don't get that right, and they did a pretty, I have to say, visually they did a very good job. I was happy with the visuals. If you don't know anything about the manga or the shows, you'll be like the same thing with going in to see Doctor Strange. Visually, you'd be like, well, it's worth the ticket. It's worth the price of admission just to see all the special effects. The story is, if you don't know the story, then that's different. And I think that's where, when we talk about nostalgia bait or member berries, where Ghost in the Shell has so many scenes where it's like, wow, I remember that from the movie. I remember that from the series. Or I remember this or that. And it's sort of like, that's enough. If that's all it is, then that's fine. If it's trying to do more, good for it. They did a little bit more with her backstory. Fine. It's not a big deal. And it didn't break anything. I don't think any lore was broken as a result. And the adaptation was fine. Yes, I would have wished it was more adult. The violence could have been better, but everyone has a certain feeling on how violent an action adventure should be. And with Doctor Strange is just a strange run. If you ever do read the comic book, where he essentially becomes a god of the universe, and they toned him down. They made him a bit more realistic, and I think that's where they adapted it to. From that point on, they rebooted the concept of Doctor Strange as a human, and he's a doctor who loses his ability to perform surgery and yada yada. So yeah, there's some characters they should have tied in a bit more, but that's the same with all Marvel films, especially the Infinity War. One of the reasons why I didn't care, because I already read the manga for Infinity War. It was great. It was crazy, where every frame at certain points of the manga or of the comic, people were getting blown away. That you're like, hey, Cyclops, boom, Wolverine, boom. It's just like, holy shit, people are just dying. So that was like, wow, to see that at that scale, and the story behind the gauntlet and the gems and who they are, who is the personification of those gems. Like they didn't do that at all, I think, in the movies, from what I recall, at least. Which was a big thing I liked. I loved what was his name? Adam? Man, my memory escapes me, but the main character the main hero rather of the Infinity War. Adam Warlock, that's his name. So he was a big role, but nothing in the MCU, unfortunately. Okay.
Tibetan actors? Well, yes, but not in the way that you think. You see, 18% of Marvel's motion picture income stems from China. And guess who China is not exactly the biggest fan of? Correct. So the choice was made to change the character so much from a male Tibetan to a Celtic female that hopefully it would be so different that nobody would notice. You have totally underestimated your geeky fan base. We get upset when a good-looking white man plays a good-looking white man. On the one hand, it's good to know that the American filmmakers don't have any real anti-Tibetan agenda. I mean, they're a business and they want to make as much money as they can, but on the other hand, it's still ethically wrong. They're putting a prejudice ahead of not making more money. But let's be honest, this happens a lot in business. Like, all the time. And let's also be honest, we've let very similar choices slide recently. Oh, what? You mean blackface or that slanty eye makeup that never fooled anyone? Come on, that's not us, that's the generation before us. That stuff is, but you've been okay with a lot more than you think. In fact,
I don't think we need to defend what happened 80 years ago in film and TV, if we even watch that stuff. It's not for us to say. That's a different time. The same with fashion. It's like, oh, bell bottoms, those are so 70s. It's like, yeah, that was the 70s. That's the point. Good for them. Every era has their own quirks and culture, and you have to respect that because that's what happened. There's reasons for that. I don't like this sort of enlightenment that we're constantly every generation or every 10 years we're more enlightened than the last. I don't know about that. I think we're more intelligent. We have more knowledge, but ethically, I don't think we really have evolved that much as a species. I would say we're probably worse ethically than we were 40 years ago, simply because we're angrier and we're more religious, whether or not we're talking about religion or not. We have more points of reference that we don't break from, unfortunately. We're too stuck in our ways. I know it sounds weird from younger folks, but when I see that in people online or even in person, it's like, why are people so angry? What is wrong? They don't understand how recycling works, or what actually goes around in society, how much waste every city produces, or what it takes to feed a populace. They don't know how efficient it is to feed a chicken and to eat chickens, for example, if you want to understand the food cycle. So if all it takes is a little bit of knowledge, like, hey, you know what, that's not a big deal. Whether you want chicken or beef or poultry or some other kind of non-animal protein, like, go for it. No one's judging you. But unless you're a vegetarian or a vegan, and you have a religious debate about food, which is crazy. So visuals in geeky stuff is not a big deal, but
yeah,
people get crazy about it. So, but yeah, Aladdin, if he's going to bring up Mr. Smith, that'll be hilarious. Here we go.
We've grown up with it mostly in cartoons. Apu and Dr. Hibbert? White guy. Aladdin and Jasmine? White people. Hey, you remember all those animes starring Japanese people? Practically all of them are redubbed by white Americans. In fact, there was even a Cowboy...
I prefer the subs, personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, and also, like, if you get something in Japan, it's gonna be dubbed by Japanese people.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. Like, okay, like, you have a target demographic, but, like, unfortunately, like, how much people, like, try to hide it, but, like, white people are dominant still in US. You can't do anything about it. Like, maybe eventually it's gonna be, like, so mixed that, like, you can't make out of it, but it's gonna be like that for a while.
Yeah, I think we're gonna...
It's all about the acting talent.
Yeah, we're gonna get localization for multiple languages: English, Mandarin. I don't know what's the dominant European language these days. Probably still English, but
English, yes.
Yeah, so unless there's a huge cultural shift in the next 2 years, which there might be because of the stock market and who owns what, we may have the future of at least the language part of cyberpunk starting, where we're mostly dominated by Asian speaking cultures, just because they are the ones who own most of it. So it won't happen overnight, but it will happen if that's the case. So that's why everyone's like really pensive this month, because this is the month where we will find out whether the market will keep going down or some miracle is going to happen and inflation is going to just slowly trickle down back to where it should go. But I don't think that's what's happening these days. We'll find out another month or so. Anyway.
Be in the works for a while that was going to star Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, but that was like 20 years ago.
Yes, 2008 or 9, yeah. But at least I can say that like Keanu was like familiar with like the source material, and he said like he would be happy to do it. But I'm happy that it didn't happen. Like it was supposed to be like 2-hour long movie. That's terrible for Bebop.
Yeah, I don't know how that would have worked, but if it was like right after he did the first Matrix film, I would have been like, hey, he's young, he's right age, he's got the right attitude. Well, I don't know how it is. He was pretty chill back then too, so I don't know if that attitude would have worked, because a lot of his acting in the 90s was like hit and miss. So
yeah, this was like late 2000s. I would say like he ironed out those.
Yeah, if it was earlier, I would have, like, the right age. That's what I wanted him. I wanted to be like he's doing martial arts. He really gets into his roles, and I think he knew what Bebop was, because people said he'd be perfect for this. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? It's gone on for years. I think he would have been a pretty good fit, but there's other people that could have done the role as well. I as much as I like John Cho as an actor, he's too old. I'm just sorry to say.
Way too old. Like there's like one scene where it's like, I have rewatched like Cowboy Bebop, that I don't really pay attention to the detail, like how many times did Spike had headphones on his ears. But like he constantly has that in every episode, and it's so annoying. And like it pulls back his hair, and we can see his receding hairline. And it's just like, oh, this is supposed to be a guy who is like 26 or 7. No.
Yeah.
Even like, I know that Asians age slower than us, but this is too much.
All that silky white skin, yeah.
Like, there are some moments when you see like a really close-up shot of him, and it's like a lot of wrinkles. It's just
Yeah, I know they could have hired a no-name guy. I would have been a lot happier with that. And to pull off Spike is, I'm not saying it's tough, but it's not easy. There's something in between, because there's like an attitude you got to get. There's the pose. He's constantly like on one foot, like putting his weight on one foot or off to the side, or sighing, and he's always just sort of half there. Like there's something off about him.
Yeah, he needs to be enigmatic, but it's and you have to like have like a happy-go attitude for him, because like that's the face that he shows to the outside world, but he needs to be like an actor who can shift to like very serious tone in an instant.
Yeah, but that's
Spike.
That's, I think a lot of the characters are like that as well, because they are constantly in danger, and then they're just chilled and bored and like ugh. So there's these moments where they're up and down very quickly, but they're not explosive. They're not like screaming all the time. Yeah. They're sort of chilled out, really chilled out, but they're also like snarky.
You know what? Like maybe that's why like Jet is the best actor for like the adaptation, because like he has the widest range. Like he can like do like both of those emotions very clearly and believably.
Whereas
when John Cho was trying to do that, it's like it wasn't. And Faye is just like Faye is just an angry Californian woman.
Yeah, and John is sort of, he's trying to be chill. He like when he talks to Anna, I think in the bar, I saw a few scenes. He's trying to be like smug and sort of cool. I got my new life, yada yada. And you're like, all right, kind of like Spike, but kind of. And then it never really, like, there's no energy behind it. He's not really romantic. He doesn't really have that. Like, you feel like he's this old soul in the anime, and he's sort of like forlorn about what's going on in his life, and he's not sure about Julia, and he's always excited about Julia. It's all he cares about, but it's always...
Yeah, like he puts aside like everything else that like he has. Like, and there's that one beautiful episode, Jupiter Jazz, with Gran and all. Like, he just hears the name Julia, and like he throws away literally everything, and he just like goes and like go to the planet, even though Jet like asks him like, "How can you do this? Like, you're fired then." Like, Spike's like, "I don't care."
Yeah, there's something mysterious and hard to pin down with Spike, and that's why we call him cool, because it's so hard to understand what it means to like a character who's enigmatic. Because there are enigmatic characters that you're just completely mysterious about, like Johan in Monster.
Yes.
And you don't like him, but you're attracted to what he is because you don't know what he is. With Spike, you get little bits and pieces, and sometimes it's poetic, and sometimes it's visual, and sometimes it's scary and unknown, where you get flashbacks of his troubled past. But there's enough of a attitude in there, like, okay, he's not a total goofball. He's just goofing around to make it look like he's goofing around, not because he wants to. He's extremely skilled. He's amazing at cards. He's probably better than Faye, but he doesn't show it off. He just does it for fun. And he's so street smart that it doesn't come across as he's like, I'm a tough guy. Like, he's just a guy. So there's like that level of skill that you appreciate, like a Batman level of skill. It's like, oh, Batman's so skilled, he doesn't have to like talk about how awesome he is. He's just Batman doing his thing. So there's levels of why we like Spike, and part of it is a lot to do with his mystery. All right, here's gay actor Michael Douglas. Thank you, sir. I'm surprised no one has brought up the fact that this is a ridiculous false equivalency. Okay, voice acting requires vocal range. Acting necessitates using your physical body. I would say a lot of voice actors in the booth are using their physical body as well, but that's, you don't see that. Also, Hank A. Area, the Simpsons actor, isn't white. He's an Iberian Spanish Jew. Oh. Cool. Very cool. I do know a lot of actors who were doing the Sailor Moon stuff were talking about themselves because they would see Serena, for example, and one who plays Luna. I remember this is like early 90s, and she was like, when you see the anime where Serena is screaming at the top of her lungs and her mouth is the size of a pizza, it's like, yeah, she could do that. She actually does that. It's like, well, obviously she's exaggerating, but you have to enunciate with your body when you're acting, whether you're just doing voice or actual acting. So there's a whole way of using your diaphragm and posture to get louder and get the levels that you want out of your scene. So
it's called acting.
Yes,
it's being not a plank.
It's not just I can sound Scottish if I want to. It's actually
it's not about imitating accents.
Yeah, there's more to it than
that. Are you still on Cowboy Bebop or again?
Well, he jumped around, so he's yeah. We're taking our time.
Sorry, I missed all the fun.
We like talking about Bebop just because it's a fun thing, but yeah, we're not even halfway done. We're not going to get done today.
Oh, I thought I've missed everything.
No, we like rambling too. All right. Anyway.
I'm really excited about it. Wait a minute. How come this gets a pass but Scarlett Johansson doesn't? But it doesn't stop there. Belle's not French, Tina's not a girl, Tommy's not a boy, Neil Patrick Harris isn't straight, Robin Williams isn't gay, and speaking of comedies, I don't think the cast of Life of Brian are actually Israeli. In fact, Britain and a lot of other countries have posed as us a lot. Some of our most famous American roles are played by actors who are not American. And it even works the other way around.
Isn't Mel Gibson American? Like, I know that he spent a lot of years in Australia, but
I can't say for Mel Gibson, but if we're talking about films from like the 60s and 70s, yeah, they got British actors to do Jesuits all the time.
Oh, those, of course, yeah. They have like really good American accents. Like before I knew anything about Henry Cavill. Like, I only saw him in Man of Steel at the time. I really thought he's just an American guy. Because like his accent was just so spot on.
Yeah, it's like when you actually look at some of these actresses like Sophia Loren, Monica Bellucci, they did do Italian stuff, but then they moved over and did American stuff. So, it's not unheard of to have actors that are talented, but really good, to get picked up by bigger studios because there's more money there, and they go, great, I can move to America and do all these big films. So it's not unheard of to see talent be shifted around the world. And that's even from Bollywood to Hollywood and what have you.
It's like Alfred Molina or Rama Mafia. They've played almost every ethnicity there is because they look like...
Alfred Molina played David... Well, he did play Poirot, but it was the strangest Poirot outside of... oh, God. Who's the actor who played Hamlet? Oh, God. He was knighted. Oh, boy. He also is playing Poirot with the gigantic handlebar mustache. He's like, oh, my God. He's doing a few of those films now, and I'm just like, dude, we love you, but please trim that hedge, sir. It's a beast on your face. Anyway, yeah, no, there's lots of actors around the world we don't know. Molina's been in so many films. You guys know him from Spider-Man, I think. That's probably the biggest he's known for, but he's done a lot of weird things. So you get work where you can, guys.
Like almost every ethnicity there is. In fact, something that's getting a lot of praise is when a role that's meant for a white actor is suddenly being played by a person of color. And I know what you might be saying. How...
Define color, define white. Because there's no clear line, it seems.
Color is whenever it's not white.
In the end, it just means what I want to get at is the perfect color is Black African. And that's all American African. They don't actually care about Africans.
Yeah, like
Uganda movies. Oh,
I'm reminded of that. You showed it on the screen. The Kingpin actor, Michael. What the hell is his name? Is a big name. Like he played the role very well. And I don't think anything about the Kingpin actor is inherently white or African American. It's just he's a guy who's a mobster. Like he is the mobster that is part of the city. So
I think that casting choice was the least of the problem of that movie.
Yeah, I know.
This is the Ben Affleck, what's his name?
Which
movie is this?
Daredevil?
Daredevil. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was the Affleck.
Oh God.
There'll be a time when they will declare the Hispanics, Latinos to be white again.
Oh, well,
they will be getting to it because they're starting to realize that all the Mexicans they let in and other South Americans through the southern border are actually not voting left wing as they want to. That's why they get them in, so that they then get hooked on benefits or be thankful for being let in, get citizenship, and then vote left wing. That's what the left hopes. What they don't understand is, and what they're starting to realize is that these are conservative Catholics.
So can I get my taco now?
Well, according
good Christian taco, yes.
According to another,
I want extra jalapeno in it.
Oh.
If it's Christian jalapenos, you will get all the jalapenos.
They're baptized jalapenos. Yeah.
Only Roman.
You just need to thank Jesus.
Well, according to other bald guys with goatees, there's no difference between being white and being Japanese. So, I'm sure that they'll be accepting all the people, or not race swaps. I guess they're just people swaps at that time, if they could find cheaper actors to fill the role. So.
The cheapest actors.
I don't know how films in Japan are for live action. I'm sure they're very popular, but I just don't watch them. I have no idea.
There's a market for them for some reason, because I at one time I saw so many of popular animes being live action adapted, not even a year after they were released. I think Attack on Titan got a live action movie.
Oh God!
Not so long after it was released, I was like, really? It's that popular now? It was, of course.
Time it peaked, and it really peaked until the writing got garbage.
I think like the first 2 seasons, but it was just like insane. Like it was everywhere. But
Yeah,
like,
because the
but
first
like
season, the
it's like
mystery is
really
still
there's
there.
like a market for these live action movies, and like they aren't that good. I think the only one I saw was the Cromarty High School one that was strange, and the Death Note one. I think had a completely different ending from the anime.
But the
L
Attack on
in
Titan
that
thing
wins.
worked only in the first season because the mystery, the fantasy world was so strange, so different, unique concept, and then it turned out to be bullshit. So
Maybe
and
J.J. Abrams was working on that mystery box as well.
yeah, because the moment that the reveal came in, it lost all the flavor.
They are Jews.
Everyone is Jews.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's the blonde guys that are the Jews this time. That part was funny, but it's that aside. An example where it went the other way around was Great Teacher Onizuka. That was a live action first, and then came the manga and anime adaptations.
Oh right, yeah.
Great anime. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and J dramas are big. And there are even some good ones that are more like almost comedy shows. They usually have the same actors in them because they're not doing these 1,000 episode ones, but rather these like anime 26 episodes a season or something like that. And then the story's done. And then they take the same actors and they play a new show with new characters.
It's just like soap operas in South America. I used to have an uncle who watched that. Well, he watched like wrestling. He loved all kinds of drama. So yeah, they exactly. They have like one season during the summertime, and then they recycle them for the next year for some other show. It's the same actors.
Yeah, it's I like that concept much more because at least you get new stories then. And there was a time when I watched a couple of them because they were actually pretty fun. One of them was called Trick, which was basically Scooby-Doo, but with only a guy and a girl. And they would go around Japan and run into these weird people playing illusions and magic tricks where like the entire village puts up mirrors to confuse people so that they be left alone and people think the area is cursed so that they walk in circles and such. It was fun to watch because you could try to figure out you could actually try to figure out a mystery in each episode.
Yeah, it's very similar to the casting technique for, I don't know if the show's still on the air, but the American Horror Story, where every season is, well, it's the same show, but every season is a different story, a different world, but they hire not the same actors, but pretty much 90 to 80% of the cast is the same. So
it's trying to go through every horror trope there is. I
don't know. I haven't watched it all. I know some of my girlfriends who, sit down and watch a show. I was like, okay, fine. And it's all right, it's fine, but it's not for me. But yeah, he's like, didn't we just see the same actor in the last season? And it's like, yeah, this is totally different. That's how the story works. It's like it's different every show, and you're like, or every 12 episodes, whatever. Which is cool because then you'll have the season where they have like Lady Gaga on as a main character, or some other characters that you've never seen before. So that they do mix it up, but it's interesting that you can have a contract that gets renewed, or they try and fit you in for another role most of the time. And I think there's a few articles or YouTube clips about how many people have been on that show and how long, and all the roles they've had. They must have had 12 roles each, some of them. So
you know how you could pull these seasons together with because it's stupid tropes anyway. You just start every season with a false waking, because you're out of the last weird world, which is a nightmare, full of nightmares, nightmare creatures, nightmare events. And now I'm awake. And then the nightmare things start happening again.
Well, they actually have a spin-off called American Crime Story. So they're doing even more stuff. I guess the horror creature stuff is getting old, or maybe they just don't want to do it anymore. And then hey, let's keep acting, if they can sell that idea to a producer, I mean, good for them. And if people like it, again, good for them. But it's just funny that they can do. It's like they're like a traveling acting troupe. Like, what do we want to do this season? I don't know, horror again. Oh, okay, and figuring out a story and plot and characters. And...
Personal favorite of mine. If you wanna watch, wanna get into the world of J-drama, give it a chance, or just a morbid curiosity. One that's funny and wholesome and more or less a classic story, classic anime story, classic high school story in Japan. Watch Dragon Sakura.
Jeez.
It's about a shitty class that gets a substitute teacher. The substitute teacher turns it into the best class that competes with the best school in town that is across the street or something. And it's named after the awesome tree he plants in the schoolyard, which is a sakura tree. And so it's Dragon Sakura.
It's gotta be Japanese.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Gotta have rice and all these all kinds of good stuff. Okay.
I think your mic just switched.
It switched?
To the shitty one.
Oh no!
No, it's back.
Oh dear. What is going on? No, it's fine. It's fine. Nothing changed. Anyway, back to the video.
Is a color playing a white person's role any different from a white person
Because they don't look alike at all.
playing a person of color's role? Stop! I'm not going where you think I'm going. The answer is obvious because of the whitewashing we've had in the past. America.
No. If you think you need to do these things to get back at white man, then you're just a petty child.
This was like only 2016. I believe like he probably has different opinion now. Now that he got like a lot of backlash, like from that other side that he was trying to advocate at the time. But yeah, that was like a complete different era when like these actors were doing blackface. It was because like I believe this was in the 20s and 30s. Where this frame is from. It's like when there weren't really like black actors like in Hollywood at all, so they had to like resort to something like this, or they just like were allowing like race jokes like this.
Right. Nowadays, so long as you have the lore to back up why you're doing it or it makes sense, which you don't really need to have with the Ghost in the Shell live action, but that's where people get fed up because we have like even with gaming stuff. As much as I like gaming, we want the comic on TV. That's all. It's all we want. He knows that. We know that. And then he changes it anyway. And you're like, dude, why did you do that? You didn't have to. You know why people want to see the Sandman. We've read it in the 90s. We thought this would be awesome on TV or on a movie. And he didn't want to do a movie because it was not long enough for his content. He said, fine. Technology wasn't there. Fine. We waited 20 years. And what'd you do? You changed the characters around. You changed their sexuality around. You changed
for no reason,
just because he could, and it's like, dude, what is wrong with you? Are you getting senile? Like, what is happening?
No, they're just rolling it.
Yeah.
Nobody got that.
Clearly had the best record in terms of treating people equally, and it's obvious there has been years of keeping women, foreigners, and anybody of color as somehow lower than white men in both society and our media. Because of this, we're more open to allowing the gender or race of what was a white male.
Isn't that Django?
This is Django, yeah.
That's Django, yeah.
Isn't Django an original character?
No, it's not. It's an Italian movie from the 60s or 70s, and it was like a white man, so no. But you can see the original Django hanging out in the Tarantino Django movie, actually. It's a nice cameo. It's... when Django, there's Django on the screen, visits with Leonardo Ritardo's mansion.
Interesting.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, like I think like he's hanging out in the bar, and he's like, "You're Django," and it's like a callback to like a line from the movie.
How much is the story different?
Quite different. It had nothing to do with slavery, as far as I know.
So it's basically a different person named Django?
It's like a badass Western, but yeah, it's just like a story around it. Yeah, I believe.
Or I could, if it's a completely different story with a different guy that just happens to have the same name, I can accept that.
All right.
Change to reflect environment. But even taking race out of it, there's tons of similar whitewashing going on that we've just allowed. I was actually shocked when they did Lord of the Rings and they didn't hire little people for the job.
What?
No, you weren't.
What? That's the argument?
No, you were not.
They were small
And hobbits
enough.
hobbits don't have dwarfism. Different thing.
That's a weird argument. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
They are supposed to be 3 or 4 feet tall, like something like that.
Well,
Yeah.
you
And
learn
even
at
the
the end.
dwarfs in Tolkien lore don't have dwarfism.
Yeah, at the end, the whole argument is that the hobbits are evolving. They're growing into man. And I think Samwise is taller than Frodo, and Frodo is taller than his grandfather, or his uncle, or whatever. Like they're all evolving.
I think the weirdest choice that they haven't done is that Frodo is supposed to be like 50 or something.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I don't know how old he's
according
going.
to the book, because that's when I'm currently reading it. I'm like
But was he
150
not
pages in. Like,
Was he not in the movie?
not from like not
Did
not
they
the
just not
actor.
mention it?
If you look at the actor, no, I think like they even like didn't really go with the time skip, because like the book is very clear that there's like 17 years passing by between Bilbo's birthday when he disappears and when Gandalf finally comes back and tells Frodo that like, hey, remember that ring that I left you 17 years ago? Yeah, like I'm gonna tell you what it actually does. It's like I don't think that's in the movie, like not at least the Peter Jackson one.
I'd say that's one of the things that was probably cut for flow.
It had to be
So
like in a movie like that. You can't have a time skip like that. And the other thing is that it's not a very noticeable thing. In a book, like you can get away with that, like a time skip like that, but like in like a movie, it's like that size. Like
in movies, it's always better.
Jackson's movie is way more action paced too.
Yeah,
it's like
and
like how do you fit like something like Tom Bombadil in there? Like no.
Ooh. But yeah, in movies, it's generally better to avoid time skips if you can, and that one doesn't really add that much to the story. I can understand this from the transfer of medium here. I'm just sad that the what's the English word? Hillgrave cairn, I believe, that scene is missing. If you're still in the beginning of the book, that's far out. That's where the hobbits find the swords. That scene gripped me as a child when I first read it. That was one of my favorite scenes, and it was sad that it wasn't in the books, in the movie. But
which scene?
Where they fall in through the ceiling of one of the hill graves, one of the cairns. Like the German word is Hügelgrab, Hillgrave.
I don't know German.
Yeah, there's a special word in English. I think it's cairn. And where all the hills that you see, they're actually graves of ancient people. And there's a scene where they break in through the ceiling of one, which saves them from another evil. If you haven't read it, I'm not going to spoil too much. That's where they actually find the swords, which allows them to fight back.
Right.
And I think they get saved by Tom Bombadil at the end, and you would need another resolution for that because
the raid, yeah. Like
yes.
I have just read that chapter. It's just like I'm reading it in English.
Yeah, that's where they get the mithril swords. I think Auntie Sting and Gandalf gets Glamdring, I think.
No, not from that. I believe.
Not from that? Okay.
Gandalf is still a mystery, like where he is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Gandalf isn't around there. I'm pretty sure the hobbits are on their own.
They have just arrived to the prancing pony.
And in the movie, they just get the swords gifted by Aragorn when they meet him. But that scene in the book it's absolutely beautiful. And it's a good Deus Ex save from the ring wraiths, because the hobbits are helpless against them completely. Yeah. But they don't have dwarfism.
Yeah, they aren't really. Like that was like the least bothering thing about it. Like a lot of people, like what I heard about is the actor for Frodo was like too much of a bitch for them. And I can't really comment on it because like this was the first version that I saw of Lord of the Rings, so
Didn't Peter
didn't
Dinklage
really bother me.
talk about how Disney wanted to remake Snow White and they wanted dwarves, and he was like, "No, that's stupid. Don't do that."
They also wanted to cast a black woman for Snow White.
No. I think I remember like Disney wanted to do that with Snow White, but they actually got like dwarves to act, and then Peter Dinklage said like it would be like too, like it would be against little people to like do something like that. It would be inappropriate to do that. So they didn't go with the idea, and then like those 7 or 8 dwarves on.
I found the article. This is it. I was a little taken back by the fact they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White. But
no!
But you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, yeah. So he knows what's going on. Yeah.
You're very proud of cultural appropriation. Congratulations.
Jeez.
Well, and Peter Dinklage pulls
said,
up
like,
the ladder
the
behind
Latino
him.
people are actually white.
That as well, yes. See,
in
I've
their
been
hearts,
telling you.
in their hearts, they are white.
The Japanese,
they like gardening.
The Europeans and the Latinos are all the same. You can't tell the difference.
I could rather accept a Japanese woman to play Snow White because they have some damn pale girls.
This is true.
And it's all about Snow White has her name because she is so pale as snow.
Yeah. But that's too racist to talk about, so we're going to keep going.
Don't get me wrong, were all great. I had no problem with their performances. But the only time little people were used is when you saw the back of their heads.
It's also
Why are we okay
shots.
with that?
What?
They can play...
Because it's movie magic.
It's a movie, Doug.
It's about... It's not about the fucking actors, okay? It's about showing us a wonderful story that we can that works on us as portraying, as conveying this fantasy as immersive and intact, as believable.
Yeah, this is practical effects, and this is how the story of sorry, what is this? What are we looking at? This is not Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
What is this?
This here is Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz. Thank you. Yes.
The thing is, the movies are not like you may have come to believe from all this celebrity bullshit that movies are somehow about the actors. No, they're not. Movies are about the audience. Because when movies are just about the actors, we get Captain Marvel.
And the director has to solve a problem to make the scene believable. Even if it's in space or magical forest or underwater, he has to go, or she has to go, hey, how do I make this work? How do people actually sell, or how do I sell this idea to people that we're underwater and it's believable? Or we're on a spaceship and it's being infested by the devil, like a gateway to hell or something. Like, how do you do that to make sense? And this is the practical effects they had at the time. Hey, let's just hire a whole bunch of midgets because that fits in with the scenario. And you could tell in the background, that's all a matte painting. That's not a set. That's, some of it's real, but in the background, you didn't have all these cobblestones going to a whole city. It's like, no, they do a bunch of paintings and big giant backgrounds and have the lighting just work. So every scene is believable. That's number one of every director's job. Get the right shot with the right lighting, with the right zoom in, with the right sound, with the right background, the right set, the right costume, the right makeup, the right lines, the right volume. Like, everything has to be perfect. And that's the craft of filmmaking, at least even back then. Nowadays, there's lots of CGI and voiceovers and editing and all kinds of magical post that you can get away with. So it's not about the actors, it's not about the music, it's not about this or that. It's the final product. Is it believable? As soon as it becomes unbelievable, you take people out of the magic. And that even happens nowadays. Actually, especially nowadays, we have all this CGI running around. When you watch an episode of Babylon 5, you go, whoa, that's Lightwave 3D. Holy shit. And every color is very, well, not very, was it 4 million? I don't know how many color palette they had, but you could tell there was something off about the visuals graphically. So it wasn't Star Wars, it wasn't Star Trek, it was its own thing. And you're like, yeah, okay. And then you had the practical stuff of Farscape, like, whoa, that's really cool. And you appreciate it for what it is. That you believed so much in this organic world that you were not getting anywhere else. Babylon 5 didn't have that, even though they had really.
The practical effects that Babylon 5 did use was great.
It was its own thing.
Their costume design was amazing.
The costumes were great,
when they did, yeah.
So
the Kosh suit was like this weird mix of super alien tech that has nothing to do with anything in science fiction, and then you have these organic parts sticking out that seem like they're breathing in or out gas, and then later on, little spoiler, you learn that that's all fake, because the actual alien that's inside doesn't need any of that. It's just a disguise.
But then they had the ship he was in, which was clearly CGI, and tried to mirror the pattern of his practical helmet looking thing, the pattern of the colors, and you see it on the as a texture map on Lightwave, and you're just like, okay, that didn't quite come across very well, kind of stretchy.
Yeah, that was because the resolution was still really bad for textures in the first season, especially.
Right.
Because the ship was supposed to be so it's an organic ship, and it's supposed to be changed. The pattern is supposed to be moving along all the time. But since the resolution is so low, it doesn't look very good.
Yeah.
One of the tricks it's supposed to do is that the ship, like a chameleon, can decide what to show, and thereby even display text in Volon letters on its hull. So in order to communicate. And it was an interesting idea, just that the tech wasn't that good. By the third season, the CGI, in the second, it's already getting better. In the third, it's getting much better. And in the fourth, which was, I think, 97, the CGI was leagues ahead of what shows that started later. Like Farscape, like SG-1 began with. So that's actually an evolution, and Babylon 5, I would say, is one of the shows that made, through its insistence of television CGI, made it palatable and payable, because you had to cram that into the budget of a television series. And they even went so far as in season 3 to render entire space battles that would just be shown on a news screen in a bar and in a newsreel. And that's that's the biggest space battle that you've seen in the show so far, and it's the highest rendered one with the best textures so far, and you don't even see it directly. You just see it on this small CRT off to the side that other people are looking at. That's how they spent this amount of money in a prop. They weren't obsessed with their special effects. They knew where to place them, and I think that's what makes the world of Babylon 5 much more believable than what modern things do that just go, here's our big special effect with the big explosion, have it on full screen so that you can see it, audience. No, they just put it on a little screen. It's awesome. Like that's a bold move.
All right, let's go.
I'm getting lost.
Let's go halfway through. Yeah, we're going to be here for too long. Listen to Doug Walker talking about, oh, there should be more midgets or whatever. It's like, okay, whatever. Anyway.
Supporting munchkins or elves, but starring roles was asking too much? There's plenty of actors who are little people, and it's not like these were gigantic names. I mean, nobody's gonna see Lord of the Rings because it starred Elijah Wood. They're gonna see it because it's Lord of the Rings. This is still a very similar form of whitewashing. Whitewashing? Got me right. You probably don't think this is a big deal, but if we kept to this exact way of doing things, we wouldn't have the 31 flavors of Kick-Ass.
Look, the hobbits do not have the body proportions of people with the genetic condition of dwarfism.
There's no such thing as
that's
whitewashing.
That's why you can't cast people with dwarfism if you want to display hobbits or fantasy dwarfs.
I think
because those are not the same things.
I think one of the goals of the Game of Thrones show was to cast Peter Dinklage. Like that, they wouldn't have done it without him, I think. So it's not about Peter Dinklage, but he's one of the reasons why it exists. And yes, the same reason people went to go see Lord of the Rings because it was from Tolkien is the same reason they went to go watch Game of Thrones.
I don't think they started watching Game of Thrones because of Peter Dinklage, but he's certainly one of the reasons to get hooked on the show.
He's perhaps one of the best characters, at least one of the best performances of that character. And that's why I stopped watching at season 4, because I was like, all right, all that conflict with his dad is gone now. The father's dead. It's like, okay, I'm not interested anymore. But yeah, no, this is the same reason people watch Game of Thrones. Not because Peter Dinklage was a midget. It's because the character he played was going to be awesome. And he's the guy to do it. And they wanted to see a good story. And they got that for the first few, at least the first few, 4 or 5? I don't know, past 4. But I'm assuming people enjoyed the first few seasons. And was it the biggest ever produced series in terms of
at the time? Yeah,
I think up until that point.
Now Rings of Power.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Sorry, yeah.
The difference is that Game of Thrones actually used the budget for making the series.
Did they? I don't know. After
more point, so than Rings of Power.
Yes, I would agree. I don't know what happened the last 2-3 seasons, but I wouldn't.
Well, that went the role of Batwoman.
Okay. Tax write-off. All right.
That is Peter. This guy is so popular now that they're writing him in roles that weren't even meant for a little person. If you were to recast Peter Dinklage's role on Game of Thrones with, say, David Tennant on his knees, even though that's a brilliant actor, people would be offended to no end. We love Peter Dinklage, and the idea now of putting someone like David Tennant in there would be insulting and bad taste.
Why?
Yeah, but like, come on, like this is one character, and for the hobbits, you would need to have like the same-ish height for all 4 of them, plus an entire village filled with them. That's
so for the hobbits,
really difficult to do.
So what is this for the hobbits? It's supposed to be lookalikes
between
now?
2 and 4 feet, which is like I don't know how many centimeters is that. Let's go with 1 meter, Wisp. Everyone needs to be like between 1 meter and 120 centimeters.
60 to 120 centimeters.
Yeah.
60? Good luck with that.
Yeah, like no fucking way.
He has it all wrong. He's just talking randomly, I think. I don't think he has figured out the problem.
Context between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just go on and it here.
And the character of Peter Dinklage in Game of Thrones does have actual dwarfism. So it makes sense to cast someone with dwarfism. The hobbits don't have dwarfism. The dwarves in Lord of the Rings don't have dwarfism. I'm saying that for the third time now. just to hit that home. It's not the same. These races look different than this genetic disorder. The same that orcs are not black people.
Yeah, I don't think we can start messing around with skin tone and then compare it to height and sex and sexuality. We just can't say these are all the same. Why don't we just mix and match them? What's fair for everyone else? That doesn't quite mesh with a narrative about not even those things. And writers or adapters of writing say, hey, let's turn Lucian from a devilish-looking white fellow in The Dreaming to a black woman because we can, because Gaiman said so. And you're like, why? Why do this? What's the point? Why do you need a black woman to replace the white guy? I don't get it. Any actor would have done the job fairly well. And we can go down the list of what happened in the Sandman. But I think people, even with the standard story, let's say, of the Sandman, who watch that and go, wait a second, there's not that many homosexuals running around in the 1920s. What's going on there? That doesn't even look right. What was going on there? So I think there's other issues with Gaiman that not everyone likes. He was progressive even in the 90s. So to turn that into a show is a little different.
He wasn't writing completely insane things in the 90s.
Well, yeah, it's the same with...
The most insane thing I can remember was one really stupid fetish story in Fragile Things, a short story compilation of his.
Okay.
There were 3 fetish stories in there, but one was basically just a communist vision of everyone being the same skin tone, because everyone on the planet had intermingled with everyone, so everyone was just looking the same bronze skin tone. And they had these pills that could, within an hour, change your sex without repercussions. And it was written in a really crude manner where the main character of that short story was deciding whether he would go to the party tonight with dick or with tits. And especially in the German translation, it just read really well. And honestly, I felt insulted by that, because that's not how we go. That's not how we function. Sorry. Gaiman was just full of this. And Fragile Things was from the I think the late 2000s or early 2010s. And it was already full of the propaganda shit.
Well, I remember my dad telling me about, was it the season finale of season 4 of Discovery, or one of the episodes where they have all these, like, half the crew are gay. There's like there's black women who are in places of power everywhere, whether they're the president of Earth or the Starfleet Academy. Well, it's like all these weird gangs. I don't know. It was just like all these weird, culturally diverse, sexually diverse. Like, all right, fine, it's the future, I guess. Yeah. But all the time, everywhere.
By the way, don't get me wrong about Fragile Things. Fragile Things, aside from that one story in particular, I liked it very much. I think the other fetish story was actually part of American Gods.
Really?
I think I missed it up. Yeah, there was a war unbirth sex story that was written out. That sex scene was written out, and was like, okay, I understand these are horrible ancient gods that do horrible ancient ritual shit to survive, and okay, I never want to read that scene again.
Yeah, no, Gaiman. I've read one of his short story anthologies. He's very good. Like you're gonna get 80% of the time is going to be good stuff. I got, I think it was Trigger Warning. The reason why he chose that title is stupid, but it has nothing to do with the book, because he just.
That must be a newer one.
Yeah, it's probably his newest one, and he put a.
Fragile Things is the last I read.
I think he put the first chapter of American Gods in there, or one chapter of American Gods in there. So, it's Gaiman. You're going to get
like
gods. Yeah, you're always going to get some sort of supernatural god creature in his stories, but it's Gaiman. What do you expect? So.
Oh, by the way, Mark, are you still reading Hero with...
I haven't been reading it for like a couple of months now. I think I finished it after the Monomyth Hero's Journey section. Yeah.
Okay. There was an interview. If an art friend of mine told me about this, so I can't verify it. But he told me that in an interview, Neil Gaiman, because he told that art friend told me about Hero with a Thousand Faces because I was into writing a lot at the time, and he told me that Gaiman said in an interview that he had heard of Joseph Campbell's book, Hero with a Thousand Faces, and he is deathly scared of reading it and never will. He said he allegedly said because he fears that once you read it, he will feel what's the word? Uncreative? Because he fears that he's just writing the same story that's always been written.
Well, it is a perspective too, but like it's like accepting it or like saying that like you can put creativity of like how you influence the story that you try to adapt or like getting influenced by. Because like I think like the interviews with Joseph Campbell are like way more consumable than the academic text that like it's in the Hero with a Thousand Faces. The interview, the 6-part episode, is full on YouTube for free, and I think like he goes into depth, like describing like one story from the Bible, for example. Like I think it's in the very first episode, and that's the one that follows the hero's journey part, and he describes like I don't exactly know like which chapter of the Bible it was, but then he brings up an example from Japanese mythology or like Greek one, and it's the exact same story, or like an African myth about the flood, and it's exactly the same way as in the Bible, even though like they had no contact with each other.
Yeah,
if it's the flood story, that's very likely, and there are even more archaeologists that are under their breath are saying that they do think that is a collective, a global event that they describe. But
sure.
story-wise, it makes sense to go the same way in every place, because you have the cataclysm, whichever it is, and then you have people dealing with it. You have people dying, you have people surviving, you have them going through absolute hardship. If you're lucky, you come across someone who has a few words of wisdom on how to get better through it.
Yeah.
And then you make it out, and then you become the one who helps others and gives them wisdom.
Yeah,
and that's
it's like common sense, yeah.
Unless,
like write a story like that.
Unless you're doing an academic thing, like when we talk about like years ago, we covered Wit and Folly. She was clearly covering that book for a class she was doing, but then because she's a feminist, she also covered the American journey, and then the feminist journey, or the feminines. It's
feminist
just,
journey.
Yeah, no, it's
no, there was like a feminine, the heroine's journey.
Yeah, we were laughing at that. But the thing is, it's so rich with mythological references and ideas. Like every paragraph is so thick, like it's tough to go through to figure out what is the point of, because he'll reference things from like thousands of years ago, and you're like, where is he going with this? And then he connects it to like the Bible or some other mythology. So it's really hard to read as a book, because you have to figure out everything he's talking about the same way you're reading Aristotle. You can't just sit down and read Aristotle. You need like a pad and paper. Like, what is he connecting here? Where is he coming from? So to read the monomyth as an idea is great, because it makes sense in a higher level. But once you get down to the details of like the Bible or the flood stories or resurrection stories or virgin birth stories, there's so like he connects all these dots, which is brilliant, but it's also impossible to follow.
Yeah, that's also a thing that just comes to mind, which I'm not really sure I understand. Why probably because I never read it, is that why didn't the feminists embrace Norse mythology? I mean, despite, of course, in Norse mythology, the women are also shat on for being fickle of heart and sleeping around, of course, and being manipulative and all of that shit. Of course, yeah, that's there. But contrary to many other mythologies, it is also the one mythology where women go through the same hero's journey at times that the men go through. You have heroines that go out and seek revenge and avenge their loved ones in the same way that the men do. That's pretty badass, and I'm not aware of any other mythology that has that element, and I would have thought that the feminists would love that shit.
Well, I think they jumped on the Viking show with the Norse at least, because there's always an argument whether shield maidens exist because they were well respected. But it was like, did they really happen? Was that a thing with women?
No, they're as real as the Valkyrie.
Yeah,
because the in Norse mythology you have in the stories and the hero stories of it, not the god stories, the hero stories. You randomly see Valkyries ride around the sky and meeting the heroes, and they're not otherworldly beings. They're like the daughters of other kings, and then they marry the hero or something. And it's also said that that king had 2 sons, and then this daughter and another daughter, and she was also a Valkyrie. So it's very what is it, a ball of yarn, if you will.
Yeah, fantastical.
Yeah, I still have Hero of 1,000 Faces on my reading pile next to me here. I still have other stuff in front of it that's currently more important, but I will eventually get to that one.
Well, cool. I'm still reading my dystopian crap, but that's just for book reviews and.
What is crap?
I call it crap because there's so many dystopian stories. The same way there's so much isekai stories. It's all one big ball of evil, death, killing, murder. So, how
about like combining those two genres, like isekai and dystopian?
You get isekai to a dystopian world. Like, oh no!
Like Truck-kun isekai'd me to the New Vegas universe.
Oh my god!
No. Just be isekai to California.
Oh dear. Yeah, nowadays. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that is still Fallout.
Okay. Edo period samurai gets isekai'd to modern California.
Oh my god.
That's basically Bucky. like I think they somehow resurrect like Musashi into the current day Japan, and like then he starts fighting with Bucky's dad. He gets killed. Like, of course he does.
Oh. Anyway, I think we've been rambling off for now. I think we're done with Mr. Walker here.
Yeah, we can close it. It's like it's just repeating the same points.
Yeah, I think he's going to turn it around because he's turned around a few times.
Yeah, but he's jumped from race.
Like he had like a enlightenment moment.
Really?
I think a few years ago when elections happened, I believe. He no longer advocates for a certain party.
Wait a second, my leader is an elderly crazy person. Oh, okay, yeah.
Like I think like he said like a few comments and then he got a backlash and then he said like, okay, no more politics then.
Oh wow. Well, I'm glad we're done talking about race, which somehow went laterally to dwarfism and sex. And all right, dude, this is going too far now.
We gotta like take it into perspective that this video was made in 2016, but like politics was fucking everywhere, and that was like the point when Trump was like really pushing his campaign, and people weren't taking him seriously still that he can be a president, and he was for 4 years.
Yeah, well, that was a great 4 years in terms of the economy, but
yeah, gas prices.
I think Trump just postponed the horror that's happening now.
Anyway,
well, people can see it.
I want to go relax. This has been a crazy week. I don't know about you guys, but this has been so hard.
Just got one more question from Copper Owl in the chat.
Sure.
He's asking me, doesn't Gaiman know that he writes the same story?
Yes.
I'm not sure he's aware of it.
He is,
but
he is.
I do agree. Is he aware?
Yeah, there's a cool interview he did with some journalist a decade ago, where he was talking to one of his fans, and his fans say, this is before Sandman was like it was known, but it wasn't like well known. And he wrote other books, and those other books people read because they liked them. And they said, hey, how come every time in chapter 2 of your book about a romance, there's a guy at a bar who meets his ex, and every time they have a talk, they say this line, and they always leave. They never hook up again. They never talk again. They just leave the bar sort of distraught, and they never talk again in the entire books. And he says, what are you talking about? And when he thought about it for like 10 minutes, he went, oh shit, you're right. So he's
epiphany.
Yeah, he's at the time he was unaware he does that because.
Yeah, but that's a structural thing.
Yeah, but that's the thing with his stuff. All he does is talk about mythology. He talks about gods in a different modern light.
Yes, and that's what I would say is always the same story. And his main character is always some dour, sort of introverted guy, whether that's Sandman, whether that's Shadow, etc. Yeah. And I think the exception is a little bit in
Good Omens, maybe.
No, what's it? Good Omens? The story of with doors, where the main character was a girl.
Not Caroline.
No, not Caroline. It was. I don't know. Problem is, I lent these books away and I never got them back. Yeah, I don't remember. It could have been Good Omens, but in general, he has all the exact same themes every time, but he writes it differently enough that you don't immediately notice it. It takes years to in retrospect notice it. But he's in that sense, I'd say he's very similar to Haruki Murakami.
Yeah, the patterns are so obvious that you just know there's magic. You know there's some sort of bird. There's some sort of sex thing going on. There's some cat around a fence. There's always a poem. There's something happening like that you just pick up on. You have your bingo card and you mark it off. Anyway, guys, happy Friday. Enjoy your rest of your days. I don't know if we're doing anything tomorrow. I just want to sleep.
Same. I think this was fun. If we have nothing, I'm fine.
Yeah. So thank you. Have a great evening. Take it easy. Morning, whatever. And
have a good weekend.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Au revoir.